Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, the bot traffic deception. We're going to cover today how bots have been ruining your decision making by infiltrating their way into the analytic systems that you use to make your decisions. Little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, please do throw them in the chat. You can do that if you're watching the live stream. You can do that if you're coming in via Zoom. Throw your questions in the chat as they occur to you. We may address them as we move through the material. We may address them at the end. We will get to your questions. Absolute worst case, we'll shoot you an email afterwards. But please get them in the chat while you remember them. We will get you a copy of these slides. You don't need to be taking screenshots. If you're coming in through the live stream, there will be a QR code you can scan at the end to get a copy of the slides. Otherwise, if you registered for this webinar, you will get them just through the regular thank you follow-up email. A little bit about me. My name is Steve Robinson. I'm the founder and CEO here at Brilliant Metrics. I'm a public speaker. I teach UWM School of Continuing Ed. I started my career as a software developer, but coming on 20 years ago, I transitioned into marketing. And I would say never look back, but I do occasionally sling some code every now and then, as much as I shouldn't. And finally, I don't much care for talking about myself, so I would much prefer it if this slide went away. Shameless plug about Brilliant Metrics, and we'll move into the meat of the material here. Brilliant Metrics is a B2B digital marketing agency. We are a little different in that our clients come to us not so much just to get stuff done, but rather to help them move up what we call the maturity model within marketing. So constantly getting better at technology, getting better at skills, knowledge, processes, ultimately improving impact, but leveling up every way you can along the way. All right. What are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about bots. We have to go and do a little bit of definitions around what bots we're talking about, because people are throwing the term bots around a lot to mean a lot of different things. We really mean all the things, but we'll get into a few examples just to clear the air a little bit about what we're talking about when we talk about bots. Dive in a little bit into our study, what we learned, some of the insights we garnered. What is the impact? What does this mean to you as a marketer? And then finally, are there steps we can take to do something to get cleaner data to make better decisions? So first of all, what is a bot? Well, I thought we'd have a little fun with this and play a little round of Hollywood bots. So first up, let's talk to SearchBot over here. Search bots or search engine spiders and bots, as they're commonly referred to, are the bots that are operated by the search engines to go out and check out your website and get it into the index. These folks are friendly bots. These bots are really working on our behalf as marketers to get more traffic to our website. So we generally want to do everything to let them in and get them on our site and get them to view things. As it turns out, most analytics platforms do a really good job of blocking these bots. So while these bots will load the JavaScript on your site and could get picked up by Tag Manager, Analytics, etc., the filters do a really good job of catching these guys. Regardless, we're going to call these guys good, so circle gets the square. QA bots are a different kind of bot. These guys come in when you post something. So you could be posting an organic social post, you could be posting a new piece of creative, and they will go and take a look at the landing page experience for that ad or for that organic social post. When they're looking at that landing page experience, they're looking at a couple of things. One, is it a good experience? Because if it's a good experience, they'll generally give you a little extra oomph or push, especially on the social networks. But two, is there anything wrong with that landing page? Does it have a virus on it? Is it selling something illegal? Is it spreading misinformation? All those different QA checks that just to make sure that the bad stuff doesn't show up on the networks. These are really common bots on the in programmatic media, because in programmatic media there's 3 or 4 middlemen involved in the sale of that ad impression. So you're publishing that ad on a DSP, a demand side provider, which is where you as a marketer are working, but then that ad's going through one or more exchanges and networks before it ends up on somebody's device. Everyone in that exchange wants to make sure that you're not doing something illegal or really wrong or nefarious. So they're going to be looking at the quality of that traffic along the path. We consider these good bots because they're keeping the internet a safe place and they are keeping our ad partners out of trouble, which means we can continue to use them. They'll also let us know if we are sending traffic to a dead landing page, for example. And so they prevent us from making bad mistakes. So we consider these good bots. Annoying because they pop up a lot in the reporting, which we'll show later, but good bots. So circle gets the square. Next up is a virus bot. A virus bot or malware bot, there are some denial of service bots that might be considered in the same vein. These guys come to your website. They're looking for vulnerabilities. They're looking to attack your website. Ideally, they want to put a virus on your website so that other people visiting your website will get infected. These guys are definitely bad bots. So X gets the square in this case. Ad fraud bots are the ones that are probably getting the most press in our circles. So what these bots are, well, let's explain. So if I wanted to make $1 million in advertising, but I didn't want to go through the trouble of actually building a publication that people wanted to read, what I would do is I would go out and I'd buy a domain name that looks legitimate. Maybe it's even an existing publication's domain name like BuzzFeed.com, but I changed one of the letters out with some Cyrillic letter that looks exactly like a Z or an F. Okay. So then I go and publish a bunch of content I probably scraped from other websites off the internet and publish a bunch of ad slots on there that media buyers can buy. That's all well and good, except anybody who buys ad space on this publication, A, I still have to serve impressions, and B, if I'm not actually driving traffic through those impressions, all the algorithms that optimize media are going to go find someplace else to run ads. So what I have to do is I have to spin up a bunch of servers that are going to mimic human behavior, going to look at my fake BuzzFeed.com, load my ads, click on some of those ads to a percentage that seems, good, but not amazingly good. And then ideally go interact on those websites after the click so that they look like they're legitimate traffic. Because there is so much money to be made, these are some of the most sophisticated bots out there, and they're almost impossible to detect completely. So, there also aren't that many. There's a lot of people interested in detecting these bots, and they do a pretty good job of policing. Estimates in the industry are somewhere around 10% of impressions and traffic that you're driving through paid media, especially programmatic, are going to be fraudulent. But it's a constant game of whack-a-mole. The bad guys are getting knocked down and new bad guys are popping up. Either way, these are definitely bad bots. Next bot up is scraping bot. So I mentioned that fake BuzzFeed has to have content. One of the places that might come from is from a scraping bot. There are lots of different types of scraping bots, though. Like a price aggregator is still a scraping bot. It's going out to various people's web pages to go and scrape information off. Where this hurts us as marketers is that the content that they're scraping may be out of date as it's showing up elsewhere on the internet. It also means they could be stealing our content to drive traffic to some other website. Regardless, these types of bots are generally considered bad. I should add ChatGPT and all of its data and information that it's captured would fall under this category too. And again, if somebody's, giving an answer to a question to somebody without citing you as the source, that's questionable and definitely in bad bot behavior land. And finally, let's talk about antivirus bot. This guy comes up a lot in email marketing. So if I send an email to a corporation and that corporation has an antivirus platform that is scanning email as it comes in, it's going to look for any attachments to that email that are malevolent and possibly going to infect users on that network. But it's also going to take a look at the links and click on each one of those links to make sure that those websites haven't been hit by virus bot and are ready to infect its customers or the users on that network. So antivirus bot is clicking the links in emails and acting a lot like a user when it gets to the other side. In general, I would say this bot is trying to do a good thing. and it generally does a pretty good job of identifying itself as a bot. So I would consider it I'd consider it a good bot. And with that, we've got 3 circles across the top. I think we're gonna be done with, introducing these bots here, but if you, we'll send a link to a blog post that'll outline a laundry list of all of the different types of bots and what they look like. The the key thing here to remember is there are a lot of different kinds of bots out on the internet, um, a ton. We could spend a whole hour going through all of the different types and what they do. They all act differently, and some of them are acting actually in our best interests and doing good things. They're just screwing up our data in the process. Um, Greg asks if ad fraud bots are restricted to the BuzzFeed knockoff site, or I guess more broadly to programmatic, and if the same thing would happen if he bought a LinkedIn ad. And the answer is probably not on a LinkedIn ad because it's really hard to make money off of LinkedIn ads if you aren't LinkedIn. But programmatic media, I can absolutely make money off of programmatic media by displaying ads and getting people to click on them, or displaying ads to bots and getting bots to click on them. So it's more a matter of the fact that there's money to be made in that arena. There are other bots like research bots that will click on LinkedIn posts and LinkedIn ads, but they're really minimal. And as we'll talk about later, LinkedIn is especially, I'm not going to say immune to bots, but they're few and far between on that platform. And with that, that's a good segue into our study and talk a little bit about what we learned. So our question, because we stumbled on this by doing some analysis of some data that just didn't make sense. We had to fill a hole in a report because, well, we made a mistake. We didn't tag a URL. And it's been a while since we've made that mistake, but our fallback is, well, we'll go and recreate that data using the data we can get from various other places, and then let the client know, hey, there's a little bit of recreated data in your report. Well, we went to go do that, and we couldn't recreate the data because the numbers coming out of Google Analytics didn't make any sense alongside the numbers coming out of the other platforms. And we started digging into it, and we realized that we'd gotten hit really hard with bots on that particular piece of paid media we were trying to recreate some data from. And so the conclusion was that maybe bots are really hurting our analytics to the point that maybe we're not getting reliable data. And this might explain why some of our data that we've been getting out of analytics lately has been really hard to interpret. So we set out on the question: how badly are bots impacting Google Analytics for? And to what extent is this a problem? And where is it a problem? Is it uniform across all clients? Is it uniform across all different traffic sources? What does that look like? So we identified 3 different techniques for identifying bots, and built a quick and dirty tool to go and push that data into Google Tag Manager and then into analytics for analysis. We ran it on 8 clients in different industries, all B2B because we are a B2B agency. So if you're B2C, your mileage will vary, um, but not by a ton. This is pretty universal stuff. And we ran against 3 solid weeks of data. And the 3 weeks is important because it was enough to make sure that we got a few creative changes on some of the paid side of things. It was enough to hit a good 3 solid weekends and 3 sets of weekdays, so we could see the differences there. And it was enough data to have some good statistical confidence in the results. The first thing that we learned was that bots are pervasive. We had one client that had, I think, 14% bots, and that was the lowest. And they were unique in that they weren't doing any advertising, and they had a relatively established domain, but not doing anything to drive significant traffic or to get the attention of the bots in the process. We had another client that had 73% of bots, which is a huge number, um, and and the variance from client to client was pretty much all over the board between that, as you can see by the graph on the screen. Couple trends: higher media spend generally resulted in higher bots, because of a lot of those QA bots that get through into Google Analytics, and because of some of the ad intelligence bots and some of the other types of bots that are out going and clicking on those ads. Newer sites have a higher proportion of bots. So I guess have more bots is not a fair statement, but newer sites don't have that established set of traffic drivers. They don't have a large number of backlinks on the internet driving referral traffic that's legitimate. They aren't as well indexed in search engines. They don't have the domain authority. They don't have the breadth of content to pop up in organic search to drive legitimate traffic. And so what it comes down to is new websites will often drive just as many bots as old websites, but they aren't the bots represent a larger proportion of that traffic because they don't have the other traffic drowning that out, that legitimate traffic drowning that out. Second finding, different traffic sources produce different numbers and types of bots. So programmatic was our worst offender by a pretty wide margin. And that's because you had multiple players needing to do that quality assurance on those ads. The majority of those bots are, quote, good, friendly bots. They're trying to do a good thing. They're trying to keep the internet a safe place and not promote ads full of bad things. Unfortunately, they're not blocked at all by Google Analytics, and we'll talk about why here in a moment. Meta would trigger QA checks, but because Meta knows when you change creative, they only trigger those QA checks when you change the creative out. So when you post something organically, they know you posted it, they go check it, and then they're good. When you change out the creative for ads or post new ads, they know you posted new ads, they go check it, and you're good. Programmatic was constantly checking because it didn't know if you changed the creative on that ad. So it constantly had to go make sure that that's still okay. It's still okay. It's still okay. It's still okay. And just bombarding our analytics. Organic, social, and referral produce just a wide array of different types of bots from all different kinds of networks. We saw tons of server traffic here that was not clear from user agent or from network domain or anything like that, where it was coming from or why it was hitting these servers. We assume a lot of this is research or other analytics that's going out there. These are similar to search engine indexing bots, but not search bots, not search spiders that are going out and just trying to collect and scrape information from the web. Probably a lot of scrapers in this traffic set. Paid LinkedIn only produced bot traffic if the little box that says to include LinkedIn audience network is checked. So if LinkedIn is running advertising on LinkedIn, if they're doing QA checks, they don't show up in Google Analytics. And if they're, or in any of the other systems we were using looking at this, to be honest, we didn't see anything from LinkedIn as far as LinkedIn ads running on LinkedIn producing bot traffic. But if you check that include LinkedIn Audience Network, LinkedIn would run ads on the different programmatic exchanges, which would then trigger all the programmatic ad bots that you see in the first column. So while our graph shows a bar for paid LinkedIn, that's honestly just the one client that we had one campaign that we accidentally had that box checked because our process is to uncheck that box when we run media on LinkedIn. And it's an error, honestly. So if you're running paid media on LinkedIn, don't check the box and you don't have to worry about bots. Google Ads has very limited bot traffic, but Google's other product, DV360, was one of our worst offenders. This kind of makes sense. Google Ads is a closed ecosystem. The advertisers that are on there generally aren't it's hard to get access to the data of what's being bought and sold on Google Ads. The advertisers aren't allowed to share that data other than to display an ad on their website. I'm sorry, the publishers aren't allowed to share that data other than display the ad on the website. And only Google really has access to the data of what ads are being posted and out for bid. When we talk about programmatic, that stuff is run on open exchanges. And there are companies that pay for what's called bid stream data running through those exchanges, all the different ads people are posting, where they want to post and target them. All that information can be bought. And when it's bought, some people go and check out the links that those ads are driving traffic to. Google Ads doesn't sell, Google doesn't sell that data. So are there bots there? Yes. There are bots there. They're probably fraud bots that are trying to make money off Google Ads, and a few research bots that are just clicking on Google Ads that show up on the internet as they're out doing their thing. Google Ads has minimal bot traffic that at least is detectable using the methods that we used. But DV360, even though it's a Google product, because it runs on the open exchanges, is just rife with bot traffic because people are buying that bid stream data and exploring where those ads go. That raises an important note. While programmatic display and video shows as our biggest offender when it comes to bots in Google Analytics, programmatic display and all of that bot traffic, not all of that bot traffic, almost all of that bot traffic, 90-something% of the bot traffic that we were able to detect was not traffic that clicked on an ad that our clients ran. It is bot traffic that got a hold of the ad as it was bidding on various places to show on the internet and clicked on it before it ever showed up on the internet. So our clients didn't pay for any of that bot traffic, or at least very, very, very little of it. Instead, all of that bot traffic, got a free ride to our clients' websites simply by inserting itself in through that bid stream data as those ad opportunities float through the exchanges. So again, when we talk about bot traffic, we're not talking about paying for bot traffic. We're talking about bots sneaking into the analytics on the same channels that we are investing in and screwing up our numbers. Now, there's a international organization called IAB that publishes standards for. They're the ones that publish the standards for the different sizes of advertising on the internet. They have standards for bots and spiders as well because they know these QA checks are really important, right? They have a service you can subscribe to for thousands of dollars per quarter or per year to get access to their official list of bots and spiders so that you can exclude them from your analytics. And Google claims to exclude these known bots and spiders from GA4. The problem is, to the best of our understanding, the bots aren't listing themselves with the IAB. And that makes sense because they need to make sure that they get in. It doesn't do any good for me to QA the ads that are coming through if I'm blocked from reading those landing pages. And so if they advertise themselves as bots, they get blocked and they can't do their job of QAing things. So while this is a good idea, it doesn't appear to really be being used by anybody other than the search engine bots, because the search engine bots and spiders, well, they benefit us as marketers. So we're going to make sure they can get to our website. But these QA bots and some of the other, quote, good bots that should be listing themselves here, from what we can tell, they aren't, because there isn't any economic incentive for them to do so. It just ends up limiting their ability to do their jobs. The last finding was kind of a surprise to us. Different bots engage with websites differently. So we know ad fraud bots will go and click on actually they end up clicking on things that aren't even clickable oftentimes on your website. So if you're ever replaying uh, a um, a screen recording and you're seeing somebody clicking on like white space, that's probably a fraud bot. We know the fraud bots do that because they have to avoid that detection. Um, but I was surprised to find that meta bots also will engage when they're doing their QA check. And it makes sense because if you read Meta's guidelines, they want to encourage a good user experience with their advertisers. And so, from what I can tell, they're waiting to see if there is a pop up. They're scrolling on pages and waiting on pages to see if there is a pop up or another change in the content that makes it go from something good or benign to something evil or just a really bad user experience. The result is those Meta QA bots come up as engaged sessions in GA4. They'll trigger some conversions. We use a term called soft conversions, where we count positive actions on a web page, like scrolling to the bottom, like watching a video, like sitting on a page for a meaningful amount of time. Meta bots will trigger some of those, and so will some of the other bots that we saw. Whereas Yahoo, who operates Oath Holdings, which is an ad tech platform that does a lot of the QA checking for various exchanges. They don't stick around. They don't scroll. They don't click. They don't do it. They load the page. Yep, looks good, and then move on to the next page. And so that all of that traffic comes out as bounces. So with Meta, all of its QA comes through as engaged users and triggers soft conversions and other positive looking things. All of Yahoo's traffic comes through as bounces, which, as we'll talk about later, can really mess up your decision making. That's a great segue. What does this mean? What does this mean to our decision making, and how does this influence our ability to make solid decisions? Well, first of all, it impacts quantity and quality differently. And so this will come up as we talk through the other areas of impact, but the quantity of traffic is guaranteed to increase in Google Analytics, in other analytics platforms, as long as we're letting this traffic in. So it makes it really hard to compare the quantity of traffic we're getting between two traffic sources, between two pieces of content as landing pages. And that traffic is going to vary wildly, primarily based on source. So where is that traffic coming from? Paid channels are going to have a lot more bot traffic than some of the organic channels, are going to have a lot more bot traffic than some of the other specialty channels, right? The other problem that we see is when we start to look at quality, it gets really noisy. Different bots have different behavior. As I said, the Meta QA bots look like really quality traffic on paper. They're engaged sessions, they're scrolling, they're sticking around, their time on page and time on site are both good. Whereas other vendors' bots come through as just pure bounces. So it becomes really hard to analyze the quality of your traffic that a given piece or traffic source is producing. It's not just quantity that's messed up here, it's quantity and quality. One of the key places that you're looking at that quantity and quality is source analysis. So if you're running paid and you want to measure that against your organic efforts, so how well is my organic social doing at driving traffic? How is LinkedIn doing compared to Twitter versus Facebook? How are my paid sources doing in traffic? How is my paid ads on Facebook doing compared against my programmatic, compared against my paid search? When you go to do that, all of the stats you'd use to make that comparison are broken. You can't look at volume. You can't look at cost per. The three main metrics we use are cost per website session, which we would look at as cost per interaction, cost per engaged session, and that would be calculated from engaged sessions in GA4, or cost per soft conversion or hard conversion. Hard conversions, meaning like somebody filled out a form or bought something. Bots don't usually buy things. They do occasionally fill out a form as a spam bot. That data is relatively intact, but all those softer signals that you would use to determine the quality and quantity of the traffic that you're driving to your paid channels, all that's out the window. You can't compare two channels against each other because they have different degrees of bot interaction. So your variance in quality is going to screw up the analysis because some of them are going to end up with pure bounce traffic. Some of them are going to end up with high engaged traffic. Your inflated quantity and the different levels of inflation depending on traffic source screws up the comparison. Content analysis becomes really sketchy. One of the things that we would often do and do often do is compare content that we are either producing on behalf of our clients or that our clients are producing to help them understand what content resonates and what content doesn't. Well, if I want to look at the bounce rate of a piece of content that I posted and to determine whether or not that content is engaging, if I'm getting a lot of quality check bots from the programmatic networks, my bounce rate's going to be through the roof just because I promoted it with paid. Uh, if I'm posting this regularly, organically, social, my bounce rate's going to be much higher. It's going to be inflated because those bots are just going and scanning the web page. They're not sticking around to engage. They have no incentive to do so. If I'm running it on Meta paid ads, my bounce rate could be higher than it should be because those QA bots are absolutely sticking around. There's a lot of different factors that can drive different numbers and degrees of bot engagement on a given piece, including the number of backlinks. How often is this out there? Well, a lot of the scrapers are going to use backlinks to go and float around the internet. So you're going to have a higher degree of scrapers if you've got more backlinks. Your organic social traction, paid media promotion, recency. How recently did you post this or promote it can have a significant impact, not just on the quantity of the bots, but the activity of those bots, and are they sticking around to engage? A/B tests end up getting hosed. We've been frustrated as an agency that we've been having more and more and more inconclusive A/B tests when we run them on the internet. Now we know why, and in a few weeks we should be able to fix it. So just to give you an example here, let's say I've got 60 human sessions visiting website version A, webpage version A, and I've got 54 human sessions visiting website version B. 18 convert on A, 27 convert on B. I have a winner with 97% confidence that B is the better web page. But that's without bots. Now, if I'm a bot, do I care whether you have copy version A or copy version B? No, I'm going to act exactly the same regardless of which version I see. And so if we have 60 human sessions on A, about 100 bot sessions, that's a total of 160 sessions on A. Add 100 bots on B because bots don't care. They're going to engage the same on both of them. So now we have 154 bots on B. Guess what? Our test is now inconclusive because statistically, the number of conversions is no longer significant on B. It got drowned out by the bots that don't engage. They're not going to convert. It would be even worse if the conversions I was looking at were soft conversions that can be triggered by the Facebook QA bot, for example. So A/B tests end up getting hosed when we start looking at bot traffic because bots don't care whether it's version A or version B. Same is true if I'm running an ad. Bots are going to click on version A and version B of my ad equally. And so I never see a clear winner if I'm looking to Google Analytics to determine that winner. Finally, I think this is the biggest impact of all of this, and that is confidence. As marketers, every time we run an experiment that fails, every time we can't explain something, our confidence in ourselves drops just a little bit in our ability to actually interpret this data. Worse than that, our boss's confidence can drop in us. Our client's confidence can drop in us. These bots are really screwing up our ability to confidently make business decisions. They can also lead to bad business decisions, which then also further hurt our confidence. And so, from a soft standpoint, these bots are really messing with our industry and our profession. So, what can we do about it? Well, first of all, I would strongly recommend you implement some sanity checks to your data. Check your data. When you're pulling data from Google Analytics, especially if you're doing source comparison, you want to take the lesser of clicks versus sessions, or you want to take the lesser of the number of conversions that you have in platform versus your web analytics platform. If you do that consistently from platform to platform, you should start to get a better picture of um, where you are seeing results. Platforms might inflate their numbers, or if you're doing direct media buys, those we've definitely seen direct media buys inflate numbers. But Google Analytics hopefully will present a lower number and correct the number. Vice versa, if Google Analytics is rife with bot traffic on that source, your platform generally won't report those as clicks because in most cases they aren't clicks. They're either the platform itself doing a QA check or it's programmatic exchanges doing QA checks. And a lot of that data will come out and you'll end up with much cleaner data if you implement these sanity checks. And second, as a second shameless plug, we are actually launching a platform or a software to solve this problem as well. So Bot Badger, if you go to botbadger.com, you can sign up for the waiting list to get notified when we're inviting folks in. We're doing a private beta with our existing clients right now, but this will block bots before they even hit Google Analytics. It integrates with Google Tag Manager to prevent Tag Manager from running if it has a signature of a known bot. And what's nice about this is it's going to be really easy to implement compared to any other solutions out there. And so with that, I will open the floor to questions. I haven't seen a whole lot come in via chat. Oh, I always hate it when I've got no questions. Somebody help me out here. If I've got no questions, I'm sitting here thinking either I made no sense or I made all the sense in the world, and I usually default to assuming I made no sense. So who's got a question for me? AJ asks if he can share this webinar with his team. Absolutely. You'll get a copy of these slides and the recording. Please do share this around. This is important information. A lot of us have spent a long time thinking that the data that we're getting out of analytics is legit, and it's not necessarily. So this is a reality check for a lot of people. Elizabeth asks, how does a marketer explain this to the executive team without making themselves look like they were not doing their job? The answer is that, well, Google has been lying to us saying that they are taking care of these bots. They have in the prior version of Google Analytics, they had a checkbox you could check to filter out known bots and spiders. They removed that checkbox and they swore up and down, left and right, don't worry about bots. We're taking care of it. That narrative is false. And you can always fall back on that and say, well, Google said what they were providing was legit. The other thing is that we're not the only ones talking about this. If you go in and Google bots in Google Analytics, you'll find out that there are other people on other platforms who are talking about this. But the whole industry doesn't know what to do about it. Anybody who's figured this out has no idea what to do about it, and nor did we, and that's why we ended up developing a piece of software. So it's not that you weren't doing your job, it's that there was no job to do. Google told you everything was good, and anytime you went digging for it, there was no proper action to take because Google removed all of the abilities for you to filter stuff out in the past. Excellent. AJ asks if there's any feedback from Google about this. Um, I'll be honest, we didn't try to pound Google about this because anybody who has posted questions about this in their official forums have basically been told it's a non-issue. And so uh, in the past, anytime there's been issues with Google Analytics, because you've ever heard the phrase, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. We are the product when it comes to Google, the marketers. We're giving them all kinds of intel by giving them access to our website visitors in Google Analytics. We're not paying for it. So when we ask questions, it doesn't matter how big of an agency you are, you're generally told it's not an issue or not anything that we're gonna address. Any other questions? Well, with that, if anything else comes up, please do reach out. Thank you very much. Oh, do we have plans to publish these findings at a larger scale, take it to the mainstream? Yes, as a matter of fact, we're in talks with some national publications, possibly to run some stories on this topic, and stay tuned because I think it's gonna. I think I think you're gonna hear more about this. All right. With that, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day, and thank you very much for joining me today. And go put a critical eye to the data you're looking at because it might not be what you think it is.